Right, welcome back. You are still watching Look Up Business. My name is Simba, Elijah Charles Kiage. Remember, you can join us online at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. Let's cross over to what we have right now in as far as the news is concerned. Now, Kenya Airways KQ, through the government, has paid $2.8 billion as part of its defaulted loan from the U.S. Exim Bank. Treasury documents showed the amount was paid in the first quarter of the current 2020-2023 financial year, covering the 3 months to September, further highlighting the stress that the non-performing state entity is putting on the government to keep it soaring above the skies. Treasury revealed last month how the government took over 64.05 billion shillings loan from the U.S. Exim Bank after KQ defaulted on repayment, spelling what has been a long-standing cash problem at the airline, which was recently hit by an unwelcome pilot strike. This was on top of the 2017 facility that the state had granted the airline for 10 years, running to June 2028. Exim Bank gave Treasury $841.6 million US, about 102.6 billion Kenyan shillings, to buy 7 aircraft and an engine, but failed to fully service the debt due as the COVID-19 pandemic disrupted the airline's operations, a factor that saw the state guarantee over 62.4% of the debt, translating to $525 million US that was taken over by the Treasury. This adds to a list of recent breaches by KEQ after the airline also delayed interest payment for a 25 billion shillings loan that the government had extended to it as of December 2021. The airline, which received 11 billion shillings state loan in 2020 and another 14 billion in 2021, delayed making any payments for the two loans. The plan to renationalize the airline is expected to cost the government 118 billion Kenyan shillings. The plan, approved by lawmakers in 2019, could have seen the airline delisted from the Nairobi Securities Exchange, where trading in its shares remained suspended since July 2020. As the plan takes long to take shape, it is more pain to the government that has to cough more money to support the airline. For Look Up Business, Simba, Elijah Charles Kiage. Hoteliers in Naivasha are protesting the recent downgrading of the town in ranking by the Salaries and Remunerations Commission, SRC. The commission ranked the town below Nakuru, Nairobi and Mombasa as the best towns for meetings in Kenya, which means that the state departments and businesses will favor the top-ranked regions while conducting their conferences and retreat activities. According to the investors, the town is already experiencing a drop in bookings following the ranking.
This latest push follows SRC's decision to review downwards the per diem rates for Naivasha after Nakuru was ranked alongside Mombasa, Kisumu, Nairobi, and effectively dropping Naivasha to a lower cluster. According to Rahab Muihaki, the move has locked hoteliers out of business, noting that Naivasha has over 10,000 rooms and was second to Mombasa in terms of conferencing, with the current occupancy down to only 1,000 rooms.
Sasa hizi mahoteli for now we are almost closing down. We are performing at 20% because most of the business has been moved to Nakuru by just elevating the per diem for Nakuru higher than Naivasha. Na watu wanapitia tu hapa hii barabara wanaenda Nakuru wanatuacha hapa Naivasha. It is not fair for us as investors. We have really invested in this country, our town. Why? Because we want our youth to get employed. We want our town to grow. Kwa hivyo, mheshimiwa, hii kitu wekea maanani ndio, hii manane ya kufungia ka town within a radius of 3 kilometers that ndio ina benefit from per diem. That is not fair for us in Naivasha.
Naivasha MP Jane Kihara has promised to raise the issue with the new CS for tourism and relevant authorities, adding that Naivasha has the potential of being a resort city.
Turudishie per diem Naivasha juu ya vijana wetu wale wanaajiriwa na hii mahoteli. Kwa hivyo hiyo ni kitu ambaye nimeshika hata chair lady wao ambaye ni Rehab amenituma kwake na mimi nimeenda, hata nilikuwa nimeenda Balala mwenyewe, former minister, nilikuwa nimeongea na yeye, lakini hujui ni kwa nini wanazunguka tu. Lakini vile nasema, we have a friendly government at your reason. I am going to follow it to the bitter end.
The Nakuru KNCCI chairman Stephen Thuo admitted that the review by SRC had affected many hoteliers and called on the relevant authorities to look into the issue so as to restore livelihoods for the business people in the town.
Most of our youth work in these hotels, and the others working in the farms there to bring food to these hotels. So killing these hotels means killing opportunities and jobs for our youths. I will urge the leadership of Nakuru County, the national government led by His Excellency the President, to think about making Naivasha a resort city.
Lisa Maina, Look Up Business.
In a bid to increase the rate of life expectancy in the country, Old Mutual Kenya has partnered with Pfizer and Good Life Pharmacy to offer pneumococcal vaccination to its insured members. As vaccination is a key tool in reducing the pneumonia burden, the vaccination drive targets Old Mutual Health members over 65 years old, children and those living with chronic conditions, as they are at a higher risk of contracting the disease.
The reason why we're here today is to launch our program, vaccination drive pneumococcal, that we are targeting our customers to get jabs against pneumonia. Yeah. So we're targeting children under 5. We're also targeting seniors above 65, and we're also targeting our members with comorbidities. So in total, phase 1 would be about 15,000. It's a continuous process running throughout until we achieve the targeted numbers from our database. So the children under 5, the 3 cohorts that I've mentioned, and then we go to the next phase 2.
All right, let's then take a look at exactly how the markets are open this morning. And that means going back to how they closed yesterday. And we did see a couple of new entrants, especially on the top movers, with Safaricom getting knocked out of the top 5 as opening day yesterday. So the conversation is going to see exactly whether they came back to their top movers list as well, because we do know that at this particular times, at the end of the month, we do expect that, actually towards the end of the year, we do expect that Safaricom then would be among those top movers. Okay, let's go back to how they closed yesterday then and start from what were the top gainers yesterday. And a couple of that, we did see the likes of Nairobi Business Ventures who've been in this list, but you can actually see that everybody is now, you would say, subdued really, because then when you have Kenya Re, CIC and Jubilee and Everready, it shows you exactly what the market was in terms of the top gainers. So not so much of surprises in this particular list, essentially, when you look at it and then say that the likes of Kenya Re, CIC and Jubilee and Everready that are just now at 75 cents a share would actually make it to the top place. So not so much of movements in that. Let's move on to the top losers in this particular list as well. And that's where we're coming from. Because if you look at Sanlam, it's now at 8 shillings and 50 cents. That's 5.56. But NBV would then move away from where they were yesterday, from the top gainers list now to the top losers list at 3 shillings and 52 cents a share, representing 8.5%. In fact, that was the biggest loser yesterday, because we did see them at 375, 380. That's where they've been oscillating, sort of shy of breaking into the 4 shilling mark. And but when you see Fahari as well coming in at 6 shillings and 20 cents, it's a new entrant in this list. But Sanlam has been oscillating between top gainers and top losers, because if they gain by a shilling, then you would see them jump into the top gainers list by how that particular stock has been performing. I mean, that's essentially that. There isn't so much of surprises in this particular list, and you'd expect that that trading indicators this week are just going to be around that particular area. They promised that we're going to talk about them this morning with the market analyst, but guess what? If they make it to the studio, then we're going to talk about it. Let's move on to the last indicator in terms of the way the markets closed yesterday, and that is movers. And I will tell you right now, just before even we look at how they closed yesterday, because that's essentially what you call a marquee movers list. Safaricom is at 5 million. Equity now, for the very first time, we've seen them close into the 4 million mark. KPLC back on it again after disappearing the day before yesterday at 728,700. Maybe the bigger news for KPLC is that they haven't been closing into the 1 million mark. Cooperative at 343,900. Kenyan is coming in, but you were saying that the bigger stays for this particular indicator is that in terms of movers, you talk about Kenyan and KPLC that have completely refused to go, and immediately after COP announced that 9-month result that saw them grow their revenue by 47 billion. Indeed, they've been stuck on their top movers list, with them coming in at 343,900 in terms of that particular movement. And you were saying, indeed, Equity, we did expect it to come back. Safaricom, we did expect it to come back again. But if you look at those numbers, Safaricom, in other particular instances towards this month, have been able to do what the entire market is recording right now in terms of volume. So if you look at exactly how it looks right now, not so much. KCB, right now, after 2 hours and 22 minutes of trading, is at 55,900 in terms of volume. APSA 67,000, CIC 68,000, Kenya Re 107,000. So probably you'd be expecting Kenya Re then to maybe close in the top 5 today, and Cooperative Bank is leading at 116,000. What is interesting is that right now, after 2 hours and 22 minutes of trading, Safaricom is nowhere to be seen, and I will tell you why. We've been talking about how November, towards the end of it, when international investors are welcoming in Thanksgiving and thinking about the break now, they're not so much into the market. Now, I gotta tell you this though. Our conversation today is centered around the promises that President William Ruto is made to the hustler narrative or to the hustler movement. Now, what we've done is that we have broken them down step by step, and that has been listed by the budget office, which, as we started, is essentially is composed mainly of the president's affiliates or party affiliates. Now, let me take you back step by step, but I don't know whether, Chris, you can actually give us the graphics so we can actually get to look at them together in terms of how then that is going to be realized. Now, the cost of that is going to be 2.67 trillion. Fine. But then if you look at how it has been split across the board, you will see that indeed the way it has been put together from what it wants to achieve, the employment of teachers, the supporting of businesses, the rehabilitation of roads to open markets, it needs quite a tranche of money. Now, what the office has told them is that with the way things are, we don't think that that is going to be possible. We're calling it the Ruto's plan. So once we come back, let's come back then and make that conversation as we ask ourselves the question, Ruto's promises versus expenditure cuts. Is that something that you can mix if you're talking about delivering on your promises? Right here on Lookuptv across your social media platforms. I am at Kiage Simba. Once we come back, we don't have the CEO, Miradi Kano, Abraham Mudogo, to take us through that particular conversation. Good morning.
Iso Properties Limited bado tunakutangazia Lanet Oasis Nakuru City. Ploti hizi ni za 50 by 100 na ni mita 500 tu kutoka kwenye barabara ya lami. Lanet Oasis kuna maji na stima, barabara za maram na ni karibu na shule ya Anesta Boys. Eneo hili lina usalama wa hali ya juu. Ploti ya 50 by 100 tunakuuzia shilingi milioni 1.6, na hii ndio fursa ya mwisho na bei hii. Tutembelee ofisi zetu hapa jijini Nakuru Tower 1 Building, orofa ya 3, au wasiliana nasi kupitia nambari 0758 707 050 au tuma neno la net kwa nambari 21404. Haiso Properties Limited, a culture of trusts.
Ni wakati wa mkutano. Jioni kwenye kamati ya kijiji.
Hadithi hii ilianza mwaka 1991.
Vipi kuhusu ngano kwa shamba langu kikauka? Haina haja. Tutakupa kwa njia pia tukapuje.
Mkoa unaojiendesha wa Nenshahui ulitekeleza sera ya makazi mapya ya kuhamisha watu wa maeneo yenye umaskini ya Shiaigu ili waweze kujikimu.
Ninatumaini sana kwamba siku moja jangwa hapa litakuwa kijani kibichi na mji wetu wa Mining utakuwa na miundombinu kamili.
So mimi nilikuwa mmoja wa timu kubwa ya Hasla na ngojea mazao yake.
Na bila shaka mpenzi mtazamaji, ni awamu nyingine tena ya bunge la mwenyeji ambapo tunasikia tu maoni ya wenyeji, hasa wananchi wa kawaida. Je, maoni ni yapi?
Anakwambia wananchi ndio kila kitu. Unaona dipsi na system ni wananchi. Unaona vile wamenyorosha watu bwana.
Tumeng'oa nanga kwenye bunge la mwenyeji.
So ile kitu nasema tunamuomba asituachilie.
Welcome, you're watching The CEO. On this show, where we invite masters, captains of industry.
It's all about working in teams. Customers are happy, it's a good month, the markets are good. I mean, those are very exciting moments.
Ladies and gentlemen who tell us where and how to find money and put money in our pockets, and how to go about doing business in the best possible way.
For me, I'm not serving myself, I'm serving community.
Hapa kazi tu inaendelea kuwasaka na kuwatambua wale ambao wanafanya kazi extraordinary na zile kazi za kujituma.
Biashara yote unaambiangwa, as long as you have a plan, you can do it. Our service is about to pressure the customer.
Mpenzi mtazamaji, hii ni hapa kazi tu.
Good to have you join us on Heart to Heart.
We bring you stories of people who, despite the pressures they experienced, still trusted God to see them through.
The seeds that was sown in me helped me navigate and overcome that period of my life.
New testimonies, new insights, and even better revelation of the good things God has in store for us.
There is always a blessing waiting for someone in every episode.
Welcome back to Lookuptv. This is Lookup Business. My name is Simba Kiage. As promised, we do have the CEO Miradi Capital in the studio with us to delve into that conversation of Ruto's promises vis-a-vis the expenditure cuts. But before we get there, I just want you and I to look at exactly what it's going to take, first and foremost, for him then to come in and deliver on his promises. And we did prepare that breakdown for you. And I would like to call it the Ruto's plan right now. And I want to show it to you. And this is exactly what the Parliament Budget Office did tell him, that indeed, if you're going to deliver on this particular promise, then you need 2.67 trillion alone to deliver on your promises. Now, on the back of that, Ruto has been championing for no more debt being incurred by the government and expenditure cuts. So how is this going to be? Let's look at that particular information that we have for you. Now, I want us to start from this first one on what Ruto's plan is going to be. And Chris, if you can then just help me the graphics so we can get to look at them together before I introduce the CEO Miradi Capital to get onto it. Now, under that plan, the debt repayment alone currently takes 60% of our tax collections. That's where we have to start from. That even before Ruto starts saying that indeed we're going to have money then to deliver on these projects, he has to remember that our debt repayment currently is at 60% our tax collections. Good. Let's move on to the next one, and that's exactly what the budget office also did earmark in that plan. Chris, if you could move on to the next one, can you? Is that? All right. Now, in that, this is exactly what Ruto then is planning. Under that, there is a 635 billion, that's almost $1 trillion, that has to go to 190,000 primary school teachers and 100,000 secondary school teachers in his plan. Let's move on to the next one as well, so that we paint a clear picture of where that 2.6 trillion is going to come from. Small businesses, by the way, according to Ruto in his plan, have to gallop a whopping 397.7 billion. Health is going to take 250 billion, and agriculture alone has to take 259 billion, because it did say we're going to stress on small-scale farmers and enabling agriculture. Some of that money has already gone into the subsidized fertilizer. All right, let's move on to the next one as well, so we can actually get to see, so what is his plan then around this area? What we've seen in terms of his plan to release some of these funds and not go into borrowing for recurrent expenditure is cancelled domestic travel, is cancelled advertising by 75%, vehicle rentals by 75%, communications also by 75%. Also now, in terms of all the cancellations, we don't have foreign travel that has been cancelled. Just go back to the cancellations if you can. Foreign travel has been cancelled, advertising has been cancelled, hospitality, vehicle rentals, communication cancelled by 75%. Now, to what has been cancelled completely, if you can go back to that, cancelled budgets, we don't have foreign travel, training, motor vehicle purchase, and furniture purchases as well. Now, the budget office is telling you, if you cancel all this, and then you're saying, let's cut that expenditure again by 300 billion, essentially what you're saying is, I'm not going to deliver on the promise. But they're asking him, where are we going to get this 2.67 trillion if indeed you don't want to borrow? That's the question. Abraham, how are you doing, sir?
I'm fine. How are you?
Happy to see you.
You too.
We have to remember that the budget office now is essentially dominated by Ruto's men.
Yes.
Who are telling him, we're not against your plan, we're just asking a question. Where are you going to get this money? 2.67 trillion. Let me ask you this question. Is it a debt plan on arrival?
Now, let's first put the fundamentals on the ground.
Yes.
Because I've heard you saying about no more borrowing. Because for you not to borrow anymore, it means that our revenue will exceed our expenditure.
Yes.
Now, our revenue, as per the last collection of KRA, was 2 trillion. Our last budget was 3 trillion. So we already had a 1 trillion deficit. Now, to take that further, so if at all you don't want to borrow, either the expenditure has to go below 2 trillion, or it has to go below 2 trillion, or you grow the collection of KRA to above 3 trillion.
Yes.
That is the only scenario where there will be no more borrowing. Now, for that to happen, that may not happen in the short run, no matter what we do, because we cannot move from 2 to 3 trillion in one financial year. That would be very ambitious. Also, to bring down our budget from, you see, we moved from 3 trillion to 2.7 trillion. Now we're supposed to come to below 2T, which is very hard to do. Remember, debt service alone takes 1.2. Mm-hmm. And public wage bill and public service takes about another trillion. So already those two are already above the amount we collect. So for me, if really we want to deliver on this promise, yes, because some of the promises are very good, I think maybe we need to expand how we want to do this.
Abraham, yes. Just as they come to fix your mic, I'm getting informed that indeed we're getting you breaking, and that this is exactly what we're looking as we wait for the sound engineers then to come in and fix Abraham's mic. If you can, yes, come in and fix it. When we're looking at that particular plan, I want to draw you, and that's what Abraham is talking about, in terms of what Ruto said, and you did hear him this weekend. It did say about is wishing for KRA to increase that revenue collection to 4 trillion. And by the way, that's going to be a miracle, Because then the miracle they were talking about for KRA right now is that indeed they are at the 2 trillion mark. We've never seen it happen in a long while for KRA. So that's going to double KRA's collections. Is that going to be a possibility as well? As I take you back to Abraham, so we can get to look at whether that indeed is going to be a possibility. Now, Abraham, you are at the level we are talking about. If you are not going to borrow, then KRA's revenue collection has to be above the 3 trillion mark. Yes.
The president has said it's going to be 4 trillion.
Yes.
Now, let me say it here. 4 trillion or 5 trillion for that matter is not wishful thinking. It's just that we have to do these things differently. Remember, out of 100% of KRA collection, roughly 25 is VAT, 25 is income tax, 25%. 25% is VAT, 25% is income tax, 25% is PAYE. Just those three constitute almost 70% of it. Now, if you look at the PAYE and income tax, PAYE is really, that one, I think there's almost almost compliance because most of the people are supposed to pay PAYE.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So the two growth areas are income tax and VAT. Now, VAT, if we want to increase our how much you collect on VAT, I think we need to look at the informal sector. I'm talking about businesses that if you look at from Moya Avenue going that way, if you look at the Kamkunji, there's a lot of money that goes on there. But what if today we said, for this kind of SMEs, we'll make it very simple. Turnover tax will be your final tax. And let's put it even at 3%. I can assure you we will do 3 trillion or 4 trillion. Because people will comply. Because finally people will have a way of keeping KRA at bay. Now people just hide from them and hope they never get caught. Some get caught, some don't get caught. But if we simplify the tax regime, especially for the small MSME,
yes,
we simplify the tax regime to one tax and a final tax, a TOT, which is a very good tax. I don't know why we've not harped on it. Turnover tax, we say turnover tax shall be. Is it 1%, 2%? We can call a stakeholder meeting and decide what the threshold will look like. And that's it. And we're done with those people. As to the VAT, we have to look at, do you want to have a lower rate for the VAT for those SMEs and have a compliance, and then have those gadgets that are able to remit this money directly from the SME to the KRA. Most SMEs want to pay tax, but they don't pay tax for two reasons. One, they find it either too high that they may not be in business, and two, they're not very sure which taxes they're supposed to pay.
Yes.
So there's a lot of education that needs to go out. There's a lot of fresh thinking that needs to go out. There's a lot of concessions that need to be given, in that at the end of the day, tax is a multiplication of the tax rate and the number of people who pay. So you can lower the rate and increase the number of people. It's called the elasticity of tax, of tax. So that by just lowering the threshold, by lowering the rate, you more than increase the number of the people who have complied, and you end up with a larger amount of money than you had before.
Yes.
So for me, the collections, yes, can be done, but we have to have very deliberate measures. But also remember, this government has come in midterm in a financial year. They found a budget that was already approved in June. So they're actually struggling. That's why they're talking about revisions. So their real budget is now the one that we're starting, that is being the cycle starts in January. So it builds up to April, then the June reading.
Yes.
That now will be their budget, where they'll actually articulate what this government wants to do. But the other one now they have to live with what is there and try and pump and plaster it as we go along until we get there.
Yes. But let's talk about this balance, Abraham. Yes. If you're really going to come in and promise an economy, an expenditure that your own office is telling you we need 2.6 trillion on the side, if you're going to deliver this in the next 5 years, you're sitting there thinking, where am I going to get this money from? The first move, Abraham, can't be to say, I'm going to cut down on expenditure. Can it be? Is that where maybe there's a miss?
You see, again, as I told you, they've come in a live budget.
Yes.
The easiest thing normally is to cut. But again, you cannot cut so much. They've cut 300, and even that 300 is already out. And as they always say, you can never cut down to greatness.
Yes.
You can't cut.
Yeah.
Remember, there are normally two measures. There are normally two approaches. Either you go the austerity way,
yes,
or you go the stimulation way.
Yes, Abraham, just again, as they again come in, I just want to apologize shortly, and I think we're going to take a tiny break right now then. Yes, so that we can see exactly where we are. Now, as opposed to doing that then, let's paint for you a picture, and that's the story that we're running for you now, so we see exactly where we are in terms of the revenue and exactly what the Parliament Budget Office told Ruto as we get Abraham's mic fixed this morning, once we come back.
Let me give you some statistics why we are where we are, because it's good for you to know. Countries like ours, in the middle income category, they raise between 20 and 25% of their GDP in terms of revenue. But for us, we are at 14%. We need to move the percentage of our revenue from 14% to 25%. We are currently collecting only 2.1 trillion. I want you to pray for our nation so that we can move our revenue from 14% to 25%, because that is where countries like ours are.
The conversation actually goes behind the camera, even as we wait to fix Abraham's sound. Chris, I think at this point then we just have to take a tiny break so that we fix it. Once we come back, we continue with this particular conversation right here on Look Up Business. My name is Simba Charles Kiage. You are watching Lookuptv.
Vera Beauty and Fashion College is focused on being the leading technical and vocational training institute in the region. Our team possesses in-depth knowledge and extensive experience in the industry, offering thorough training in cosmetology, hairdressing, interior design, creative arts, training of trainers, nail technology, and fashion design. With branches in Nairobi, Thika, Meru, Eldoret, and now in Mombasa, our courses ensure that learners are completely equipped with knowledge, competency, and employability skills. Enroll today to be a part of a center of excellence.